Good afternoon and welcome back to our live webinar, Navigating the New Normal. I want to remind you that as we have our discussion this afternoon, we want to encourage you to send us some questions. You'll notice that there's a number at the bottom of the screen and you can text your question in. It will be an anonymous question. We won't know who's sending it, but you'll send that question in. It goes to a person here in the sanctuary who then will relay that question to me. We would love to be able to get to your questions today. I'm delighted to say that we have Lisa Sorey back with us today from Summit Counseling Ministries here at First Baptist Jackson. And we also have Tom Washburn. Tom Washburn is our Associate Pastor of Pastoral Ministries and people with seniority, I think is what we call it. In other words, adults with seniority, that's right. And so Tom has been here at First Baptist Jackson for many years and does such a wonderful job. Today we want to talk about particularly those adults with seniority, or you may say senior adults. You know, we've talked a lot over the last several weeks about how to deal with children. We've talked about how to deal with parents who are now having to homeschool their kids. We've talked about adults and relationship issues. We've talked about even job issues and maybe even thinking about transitions that need to be made in the workplace. But today I want us to focus on those who are in the category that we hear so much about on TV, oftentimes considered the most vulnerable, and those are our senior adults. And you know, as we've talked over the last few weeks, we've talked about the isolation that kids and teenagers feel not being with their friends. We've even talked about the isolation sometimes moms and dads feel who are cooped up in their homes. But I want to ask you about senior adults. Particularly senior adults who don't have family living in the same house with them. You can only imagine the isolation that some of them may feel, particularly as we just don't know when all this is going to be over. We watch with anticipation with every press conference, hoping to get some good news, and it seems here lately maybe it's a little bit better news, but it's not the news that we're looking for. And so everybody's tired. Everybody's frustrated. Everybody has questions. But what would you say to the senior adult who just feels all alone?
The first thing I'd say is, man, they are the toughest folks alive.
That's right.
They've handled more stuff in their lives than we can imagine. So nobody's better equipped to handle it. But you're so right. It's hard. It is so hard on these folks to just be at home by themselves. And I think the thing that probably, well, this may be because who I work with, but I think it's the folks that miss church. I think they miss church the most of anything.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Tom, they do. But I also think you're right, it's like you're reading my mind, that our seniors are resilient. I think we can look to them and say, hey, tell me about a time that you went through something tough and you made it, because they know how to do this. And so I think that's a way to help our seniors feel valuable, is to say, hey, can you help me cope with this? Yeah. How are you coping with this? And being honest is important.
Yeah. Well, they're called the greatest generation, many of them, for a reason.
Right.
And it's because they have been through so much and they've endured so much. But you know, you mentioned missing church. You know, for a lot of our senior adults, church may be the primary activity of the week. And so now, you know, we're not gathering together on Sundays, we're not gathering together on Wednesdays, we're not gathering for Bible studies on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, or Reflections Choir on Thursday mornings. And so, you know, this, which was the primary way of connecting with other believers in the church and such a part of the fabric of their lives for all these years, it's gone. So how does a senior adult continue to maintain that very important connection in the church?
Well, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that this is temporary. This is temporary.
Great point.
We're not going to stop having Bible study. We're not going to stop getting together and helping our internationals, you know. We're not going to stop getting together and having Reflections Choir and choir in general. We have plenty of seniors in our worship choir. And so this is temporary. There is hope that we can get back together again. I do think that God made us so that we need each other. And I hope that we'll appreciate each other more when we get back.
I think we will appreciate each other more. I'm thinking about how our senior adults have done such a great job of adapting too. Some of them don't have an iPhone at all; they got a flip phone. But some of them, I told you a couple of weeks ago about the 93-year-old teacher who taught Sunday school on Zoom. Dadgummit, that's good.
It is.
That is good.
And if that's not an
Absolutely.
example of resiliency, I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a go-getter, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
These are folks when the toilet paper shortage was going on, they could think about when they had to ration everything they had.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean, I've heard my mother talk about, you know, she had to give her shoe coupons to her sister because her sister drug her feet. And all. You know, this isn't, being short on stuff isn't new to them.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
And those are our experts on, you know, finances, how to save money, how to be thrifty with your kitchen ingredients and what you're cooking at home, and how to use what you have and make things from scratch. You know, we're so used to so many convenience things. And so again, I think it's great for us to ask them for advice. Hey, how do you make biscuits from scratch? I never did that, you know,
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, many of our senior adults I know here at First Baptist Jackson are incredibly active, incredibly active.
Yes.
You think though also about those maybe who are in retirement homes, and I think we all kind of have a heart for them, and some of them are maybe in assisted living home who were still active, but because of where they live, they are forced to stay in, not able to get out. I mean, I know in a lot of the sessions that we've had before, we've talked about the importance, like last week, of exercise.
Sure.
Get out and walk, get out and do some things, just to kind of move around a little bit. But for those who are in a retirement community who aren't able to maybe even leave their room, what would you say is a word of encouragement to them?
Well, I've heard them talk about it, and I bet you have too, Tom, of marching in place or walking in place, you
Yeah.
know, or finding somebody exercising on TV, or maybe they have a tape or something, or music that they like to stretch and move to. And so I have really heard more about how they're adapting again and being resilient and finding ways to cope and make do. And so that moving and staying on a schedule, you know, our seniors pretty much get up early.
They get
and,
up early and
you know, they do their meals on a schedule and so forth. And so there are a lot of things that we can learn from.
Now, you know, talking about these folks in these places, that I talked to a lady last week, and I guess I shouldn't be on this thing from church and encouraging people to break the rules. But this lady said they're giving people passes at where she lives to walk in the hall, 1 or 2 at the time. But she said, I discovered if I just go and stay up till about 11:30, nobody's out in the hall anyway, and I can go walk wherever I want to. So
It's coping.
it's absolutely.
Do what you got to do.
Do what
That's
you got to
right.
do
That's
and
right.
make it work.
I'm proud of them.
Absolutely.
I'm very proud
Absolutely.
of them.
Well, and let's talk about another segment with our senior adults, and those are our senior adults who are married couples. And so, you know, for the husband and wife who are active, who like to go and do things and be involved in different stuff, and now with COVID-19, they're stuck in the home all day long. So from the relationship standpoint, and by the way, that was a great wardrobe change you just made right here on TV. That was fantastic. But you know, the couple who's at home and just kind of maybe getting tired of each other, what would you say to
sure.
them?
Well, you know, it's real similar to what we do in couples counseling at any age. And, you know, to think back, why did you get married? Do you remember falling in love? You know, what was it that attracted you to this person to begin with? And remember that we do love each other,
Yeah.
you know, and go back to that. And Tom was talking about members of his family that did Bible study together in the morning, and I would encourage whether at night or in the morning, to do those things together, because it is intimate, but it does remind each other. We remind ourselves that we love each other, but we also love God, and that God is back at the center of that, and He is the author of our love.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this question. This past Sunday here at FBJ, we talked about how the purpose of the church is to make disciples, and we talked about how every member has a role, right? So for the senior adult, in normal times, senior adults are just the primary fabric of the church, right? I mean, the senior adults oftentimes are the first ones to volunteer. They are incredibly encouraging, and they're just so much a part of who we are. But right now, being stuck at home, right? How does a senior adult contribute to the body of Christ in the situation that we're in right now?
I think one thing that people could do, if they would choose to, is maybe not for the body of Christ, but for the betterment of their family, really the advancement of the kingdom itself, is write out their testimony. Write their testimony down to be able to share it with their kids, with their grandkids. They need to know, not just from how that grandparent lives that they're a Christian, but that they had a specific time when they know they asked Jesus to be their Lord. Tell them about where they got baptized. Some of them probably got baptized outside, in a creek or a lake or something.
Right.
There's some great, there's some great unspiritual stories in there about how they had people keeping snakes away from them and things like that while they got baptized. That's just one thing that I might suggest that people do.
I do think there's lots of volunteering to do, whether it's writing letters or cards or calling people, or if you can't FaceTime or video chat, you can just call, or you can email, but as we call it, snail mail, there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with that written letter that you can keep from your grandmother or your grandson or whatever, But I wish you would talk about what you were talking about with us earlier when we were chatting about the Bible project.
Yeah, I just think it's such a cool thing if folks could get a Bible and start, and for a whole year mark that Bible with a specific person in mind, maybe a grandchild, maybe a niece, a nephew, somebody to give that Bible to. But make your notes when you're studying, and give that Bible to that child a year after you've done it. Maybe they're too young for it then, give it to them later, but what a great thing to always have and treasure is that Bible that was read every day and marked with you in mind.
The idea of leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
Leaving a spiritual legacy to your children and grandchildren, and that's something that's not bound by a pandemic.
No, and priceless.
And priceless, absolutely. I think I've shared with you, I have a group of letters that my grandfather wrote to my dad when he went to seminary, outlining his philosophy of ministry. He wrote a letter every week for probably 8 or 10 weeks, just sharing with him his philosophy and what was important to him. And that's absolutely a treasure to me. Although it wasn't written to me, I read it and it's as if it were written to me.
Wow.
And so that legacy is
It's
really
amazing.
important thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's kind of flip the script a little bit, because even children of senior adults, grandchildren of senior adults, we love these people in our lives, and we want desperately to be able to help any way we can. But sometimes we get just so busy with our own things and we don't think like we should. And other times our intentions are good, we just don't know how to start. And so what would you say to an individual who wants to encourage their parent or their grandparent? And for instance, we got a question that was submitted from a person who said, I want to put together a care package for this person who means so much to me in my life. what would you suggest that I put in it? How do I show my concern for that person?
I think knowing that person and taking the time to think about, how do I know this person? What do I know that they like or might need? The same as we would do for anybody, but especially for this person that you love, take the time to think about that. Because I think if you take that time to ponder it, you're going to come up with the candy they like, or a pickle, or there's quirky little things that people like or like to do, embroidery or crochet, or or maybe you just know that they're not able to get out and get their groceries, and their selection that they're getting, maybe produce wise, is not great, and so maybe getting them their favorite grapes or something, because you're wearing your mask and going to the store and buying that specific kind of fruit, or something like that.
Yeah, and I think making most of the things in the box need to be consumable. Back when we were doing senior adult luncheons and having door prizes, I always said I'd say the door prizes are something you're going to use up. It's not something your children are going to have to throw away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good
I mean, we
idea.
gave away stupid stuff like boxes of Kleenex and
Right.
just something to win and have and use up.
Sure.
But man, I think just that contact with that senior adult is what they need. And I think it's, probably okay to talk to people on their front porch. Just keep the social distance like you're supposed to, the 6 feet. Don't sneeze on them. Don't let
Right.
them sneeze
Yeah.
on you. But
Yeah.
it's okay to have a little contact with folks.
Well, that's a good
Yes.
point. I read somewhere where somebody was lamenting the social distancing tag, just kind of saying, boy, I wish that they would have said physical distancing instead of social distancing.
Yeah.
Because social distancing, it just has a different connotation to it.
Yeah.
And so,
True.
we think that because we want to make sure that we don't get these people in our lives that we love so much, we don't want to expose them to anything, then probably best to send an email or make a phone call. But there is something to be said about just sitting on the back porch while maybe they're inside and talking to each other through the doorway.
Sure.
And so finding ways to be able to, there's just something about physical appearance, physical connection that's different than a phone call or an email. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, seeing someone's eyes, making eye contact, you feel that person's heart.
Yeah, right.
There's theories, scientific or not, about that our hearts have magnetic, whatever components, and that our hearts actually do feel each other. And I've wondered about that. Is that
Yeah.
really true?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
we do like to be together. We just, those of us that like people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask you this question, and I think I'd love for both of you to answer from a counseling standpoint, but also from ministering to these people every day. You said it right, that many of our senior adults are resilient. They've been through a lot of different things, and so they're able to cope better than other folks regarding things such as this. But sometimes that resiliency in some ways can be a little bit of a problem, in the sense that you may have real needs that you don't communicate.
Yes.
I know just in my experience, a lot of times with senior adults, they don't want to be a bother. They don't want to put anybody out. And so they just kind of want to keep things to themselves and act like everything's okay, even if it's not. What would you say? How would you suggest that a senior adult be honest and communicate a need? Because, for instance, it may be that an adult child wants to help and just doesn't know how. So how would you suggest they honestly communicate their needs?
Tom, you think?
It's a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, because
But
You
I'm
just
sure
got to
you
do
get this
it.
all the time as a phone call, of listening to people having needs, is what I was thinking about. But I just think if we can impress upon our seniors it's okay to ask for help because we love you and we want to help you.
Yeah.
We are here for you. And so, and as I am an adult child who has older parents, I do plead with mine to please be honest with me and tell me if you need something. I'm here, and that's what I want to do is whatever you need, you know, and so I think it's okay. And so sometimes though we just need somebody to give us permission.
Yeah.
I feel like.
And maybe do that thing that I need to be reminded of a lot. You need to learn to be a gracious receiver.
Yes.
You can't always be the giver. Sometimes you've
great
got to be a
point.
gracious receiver.
And that
a
can
great
be
point.
a hard thing to learn
Oh, man,
when
it's
you
hard
are
as all get out for
accustomed to
me.
being the doer and the giver.
Well, I just think about the person who may feel a little isolated, may feel a little bit lonely, you know, but you call them on the phone and they say, "Oh, I'm fine, thank you," you know, because that's just kind of the way that we are. And that's just kind of the way that we're taught to respond. But sometimes you just need to say, you know, I'm really lonely, and let people know.
And it's also, I think, okay to say, I know you're going to tell me you're okay,
Yeah.
but what do you really need? Or how are you really? I know you had a checkup. What did the doctor really say?
Yeah.
You know,
Let me ask you this question from the standpoint of, rightly so, it's been just hammered into us over the last several weeks about making sure we're protecting the vulnerable population. And that the vulnerable population, make sure you stay home, make sure you stay away from social settings and those kind of things. As things begin to open up though, you know, there may be a little bit of fear and timidity about taking those steps forward. How would you suggest a senior adult process that?
well, having medical people in my family, I would say be cautious. Protect yourself. You are important. We want you to be healthy.
Yeah.
You know, if you need to go somewhere, wear your mask, keep your 6 feet away. And so don't be fearful. God is with us. He's going to take care of us through this. But be wise.
So just as we should be gracious receivers, we also need to be willing to say no
Sure.
sometimes.
Right. And that's okay.
I can't do that. Yeah.
That's okay.
And from a very, very practical standpoint, I think we've maybe overdone being scared to go places, especially when it comes to medical appointments
Right.
and going to the doctor. I'm afraid we've had some folks that should have gone to the doctor
Oh, yeah.
that didn't, and they just, they need to be sure to take care of their physical health.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take care of your physical health. The doctor's offices are being so careful. They're scheduling fewer people in so you don't share the waiting room with people. You know, there'd be 2 or 3 people in the waiting room way distance, and they get you right back to a room. So it's okay to go to the doctor if you need to, and if you need to, go.
Yes, that's very wise and good advice, Tom. It is. I know of too many examples of people that have fallen or injured themselves and tried to take care of it themselves during this time. So I think our medical community would speak to that and say, yes, please, we'll take care of you.
Yeah. And so just like with every other age group we've talked about, there is that element of fact versus fiction. You know, sometimes we feel something, but it's not necessarily true, or it's not necessarily the best, and you know, trying to navigate through what's the best decision, and that comes back to taking wisdom, making informed decisions, pulling the facts together, and in some ways trusting the Lord for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. What about, Lisa, I know that the times that you've been on here before, you've been real big about schedule.
Yeah, I'm big about schedule.
So does that change as we get older, or is schedule still important?
I think it's important. I think our human body likes a schedule.
Yeah.
We know it's a fact that humans don't like change, and one of the ways to cope with that, especially if you have anxiety, is to know what's coming next. And so whether it's a child or an adult, and I have some anxiety myself, so one of the ways that I can calm myself is to know, okay, well, I'm about to do this. I'm going to do this at this time. I'm going to do this at this time.
Yeah.
I'm going to get ready for bed at this time.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds real simple, but sometimes some of the simplest things really make us feel better.
Very good. Well, listen, I appreciate very much the time we've been able to spend, and you've done a great job, and we appreciate what you do. But I want to we've got a couple of minutes, and instead of me throwing questions to you, I want to come to you, and I want to ask you this question. For those who are senior adults who are watching, what would be a word of wisdom that you would like to share with them, or maybe even a word of encouragement for them today?
Hang in there.
That's right.
Hang in there, which you're so dadgum good at doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hang in there, and we're going to be back. We're going to be in this sanctuary, and we're going to be doing the thing that we're created first to do, which is praise the Lord.
Yes, and
Yeah.
worship. Yes.
Absolutely.
I echo that, Tom, and just would add that to seniors that we love you, and we are praying for you, and we are here, and you can call us because we want to be here for you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
And they know how to call 949-1900.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The church office number.
Call
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Call
absolutely.
it. Ask for us, and we'll take care of you.
That's right.
Great. Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And listen, we want to just say to you, again, we appreciate so much you tuning in today. And if you are a senior adult and you've been watching this webinar, I know that there are people here who love you and care for you. I want you to know that you're not forgotten. Sometimes, as Tom will say, old red legs will kind of make us think in our mind sometimes that we're just forgotten. It's just not true. I want you to know it's not true. Here at First Baptist Jackson, we love you and we value you. And as Tom said, we can't wait to see you back soon. And also, we want to remind you that day is coming. And we are anxious for that day to be here. But we also want to know that, you don't have to walk through this time alone. None of us do. God is one of His gracious gifts is church family, where we can go through life together. And as Tom mentioned, feel free to call the church office anytime. We would love to talk with you. We would love to know what your needs are and how we can help you. And as Lisa would be quick to remind us, don't forget about Summit Counseling. If you're a member of First Baptist Jackson, you get 6 free sessions with Summit Counseling. You don't even have to drive up here. You can pick up the phone and you can dial that number that's listed on the screen, and they can set up an appointment for you to talk to somebody. And so that's absolutely free of charge to you for six visits. And so we want to encourage you to take advantage of that. That's a great resource for us. And for those of you who have parents or grandparents and you worry about them because you kind of feel divided. You have your life and your house, but then you have these parents and grandparents and you want to take care of them. And listen, we want to remind you that the Lord knows our needs. The Lord knows our struggles, and the Lord is faithful to provide for us and to grant us His wisdom. And we also want you to know you don't have to walk through that alone either. We are here for you. We would love to help you. Summit Counseling would love to help you. So feel free to call on us anytime. Again, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, this will be put up on the website, and so if you have some friends or family members that you think would get some benefit out of watching our session today, please encourage them to do so. We certainly want to encourage you, as always, to contact the Summit Counseling office at 601-949-1949, or to send an email to jwoods, that's JWOODS, at fbcj.org. Again, we are here to help you as we navigate through this new normal. Hope to see you next week. Thank you for joining us today.